your girl Bree Nicole, and I'm back with the video. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about what a typical shift is like in a long-term care facility. I was full-time on night shift when I first graduated LPN school. So now I'm just going to talk about what a typical shift was like for me. And then I also have a couple of tricks and tips that you guys may use while you're starting out your career as an LPN in a long-term care facility, because the med pass can be really crucial. You have a lot of patients to pass meds to, and we really didn't learn about this while we were in LPN school. We had mostly like hospital clinicals, and when we did go to the nursing home, we were doing like ADLs versus actually being with a nurse during med pass. So we really didn't get to learn about it. So I would get to work about 6:45 p.m. and I worked 12-hour shifts from 7 p to 7 a. But I used to come in early around 6:45. I would get shift report from the day shift nurse, and then I would lay eyes on all the residents. And then after that, I would look on my 24-hour report sheet that we have at our facility. They get switched out every morning on day shift, and you just kind of know what's going on with your patient for that specific day. So I would look on that report sheet, and it would have everything like admissions, discharges, antibiotics, who was on antibiotics. It would have falls on there if somebody failed during the shifts. It would have who was on behavior charting. It would have the Medicare patients, hospice patients, tube feeders, whoever had appointments that day, who went to physical therapy that day. And then the next sheet after that would just be a list of the residents and their room number. And then it would just have like a little space to write down things that needed to be charted on that day, or something specific that happened with the resident that day. So the way our 24-hour report sheet also works was, if the patient got admitted, it would have the date they got admitted, because they would have to be charted on for a week after their admission date. So if it had a resident was admitted 2 days ago, then you would know that, okay, I would still have to chart on them tonight. So those admissions would have to be charted on for a week. Antibiotics patients would have to be charted on for the full duration while they were on antibiotics. At my facility, we had paper charting and paper Mars, as you guys seen in one of my previous videos. So they would have to be charted on just a nurse's note about if they had any adverse reactions to the antibiotics. And you have to chart their vital signs. And also the vital signs had to be taken for the weekly admits. And if they failed, they had to be charted on up to 3 days after the fall in case they have an adverse reaction related to the fall. If they're on behavior charting, they had to be charted on for 3 days. Medicare patients had to be charted on every shift. Hospice patients had to be charted on every shift. Tube feeders was just on there to let us know who was a tube feeder and the type of formula that they were receiving, such as longevity. Appointments were on there, so it just let you know if a patient had an appointment that day. And therapy patients were on there to let you know who went to physical therapy or like occupational therapy. And on the next couple of sheets with the residents' names and room number, it would be spaces for you to chart anything that went wrong with your resident during the shift. So you could chart if you gave them PRNs, if someone failed during your shift, if someone went out during your shift, such as like a doctor's appointment, dialysis, or just went out with a family member. You would have to chart the time that they left and the time that they got back. And then next to the 24-hour report sheet, there would be a clipboard. You listed vitals, and it would just be blank. And you would list all the residents that had to have vital signs done during your shift, so the CNAs would know who all to get vitals on. So like I said, on the vital signs sheet, I would put the Medicare patients, whoever was on antibiotics, whoever went to therapy, new admissions, hospice, monthly assessments. We have one of those every day. So there's a little notebook that lets you know who's your monthly assessment is based on the date. So every resident had like a specific date that they had to have monthly assessments done. So like say if it's the 10th, whoever was listed by the 10th had to have a monthly assessment done that day. So you had to get vital signs and do like a full head to toe assessment on them. And then we have weekly charting by room number. So let's say by weekly it would say chart on room number 209. So in our facility there's 2 beds in each room, so that means I would have to chart on both of the residents in that room, and I would just have to do a little quick nurse's note about how they were acting like the previous week, if they're still, you know, within good limits, just like a quick little weekly chart. And let's say if it's only one resident in the room, you only chart on one person, or if the room is empty and you don't have no residents in that room, then you won't have a weekly charting for that day. And then there's a notebook that's the CNA assignment notebook. You would have to look at the schedule and see who's there for the day and give them their assignment, their resident assignments. And then after that, I know this seems like a lot. I was just going through the 24-hour report sheet, but it really doesn't take long to look at who needs vitals. So I kind of do that as the nurse is giving me report. And I usually start my med pass around between like 7 and 7:10. I start my med pass. So after that, I would go and get the Ensure and med pass out of the refrigerator, because it was refrigerated in our little behind the desk area. And med pass is basically like Ensure, but it has more vitamins than Ensure. I would grab a notepad to chart it, like if I gave a PRN or anything during med pass. I would get my pen, my Sharpie and scissors, and a blank pharmacy sheet, so I can know like the medicines that are getting low. I can fill out that pharmacy sheet and fax it to the pharmacy to know to let them know what meds we're getting low on. So from 7 to 9 is usually when I'm doing my med pass. And yes, it usually does take the 2 full hours, because in nursing homes you could have anywhere from like 20 to like 40 residents, which is bad. But yeah, that's why it takes so long during the med pass. And like on the blank pharmacy sheet, we had like the little punch out cards to punch out medicines, and in the corner of it, it had a sticker that we would have to pull off when the medicine was getting low, and you would pull off the sticker and stick it on that pharmacy sheet. And so you would just fill up the whole sheet throughout your whole shift on things that were getting low. And then at the end of my shift, I faxed that paper to the pharmacy so they can know what meds needs to be refilled. And also on night shifts, I would have med passes at 8 p.m., 12 a.m., 4 a.m., and 6 a.m. And you can start an hour early on your med passes as well. So I took advantage of that by starting at 7. So after my med pass, about 9 p.m., the pharmacy truck would run. It ran on night shift to bring refills. So from 9 to 10, I would check in the medicine. They would send a list of medicines, and you would have to like double check to make sure they sent like 30 pills or 60 pills. You would have to like double check to make sure and to let them know if anything was missing or not. And also with narcotics, it has to be checked by 2 nurses. So if you got a narcotic in, you had to go to the other hall, and another nurse would have to sign off on it that you did receive like 30 oxycodone pills. And then after that, you sign that checklist at the bottom and the date, you date and time it, and then you fax that sheet to the pharmacy, so to let them know that you received your meds. And then after that, you stock all the carts with the refills. And then that usually took about an hour, depending on how many meds I got. Some nights I got lucky and only got maybe like 10 meds. And some night I got a lot of meds. There was one night I think I had like 50 meds. So yeah, it just depends. And from 10 to 11 was snack time. I would get me a snack and a drink of water and just sit there and rest my feet. And then after I got done with my snack, I would go ahead and do my head to toe assessment on that monthly patient, because in a nursing home, I would say maybe like half of them went to bed early, the other half stayed up. So I would just know, depending on who I got as a monthly person, what time would be a good time to do the assessment. So around that time, I would go and do the monthly assessment on that patient. And then at 11 p.m., I would start the 12 a.m. med pass, and it wouldn't be many at 12. I want to say at the most I've had at a time was about 6 residents that got meds at 12. I never had more than that got a med. So I would start do that about 11 p.m. And then, because you know, the earlier the better. I don't want to have to go in and wake them up at midnight. But some of them, like I said, weren't even asleep, so it didn't matter with them. And then I would just also walk by the rooms and just lay eyes on the other residents at that time. And then by 12 a.m., I would be done giving those meds. At 12 a.m., I would eat lunch. And then from 1 to 2 a.m., I would chart on everything that I told y'all about earlier. So like on admissions, antibiotics, my monthly assessment, Medicare patients had to be charted on because of their insurance required it. So all of that, I'll do all that charting. And also PRNs, like if I gave any PRNs during my med pass, you had to chart that in the time you gave it and if it was effective or not, like such as a pain pill. So once I get done with that, at 4 a.m. were basically the tube feeders med passes would mainly be like at 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. on day shift. So I would have to get new syringes. And those of you that work in long-term care would know what I'm talking about. You would have to get a brand new tube feeder syringe to like feed the medicine through. And then I would also get a brand new medicine cup with it had cc's on it, so you can know like how much water and stuff to give the residents. Okay, now once I got all that stuff for the tube feeders, I would go and do that med pass, and that would probably take about an hour. And I would also change their feedings. If they were low, I would go ahead and get a new feeding for them. And at about 5 a.m., I would stock my cart, like the cups and straws and tumblers and all that. And then I would get fresh water for the 6 a.m. med pass and for the oncoming nurse. And at about 5:30, I would start the last med pass at 6 a.m. And then after that, I would take out the trash, and then I would finish up filling up the sheet with refills, and I would go ahead and fax that sheet to the pharmacy, and I would usually be done with that by 6:30 a.m. And after that, I would just be waiting on the oncoming nurse to come in. And lastly, I'll just talk about the extra stuff that would go on during the shift that I had to do. So like if you had residents with catheters, you also had to check the MAR on the date that their catheters had to be changed out. So if that falls on the night you work, you would have to change their catheter. Also, if you had a resident that had a colostomy bag, those had to be changed every shift. Urine samples had to be gotten during the night shift, so you had to check to see if a doctor needed a urine sample on someone. And every week, our O2 nasal cannulas, the container that the water goes in, all that would have to be thrown away and changed out every Friday night. So if you worked on a Friday night, you would have to go through and see who's all on O2, and you have to change out their nasal cannula tubings and water. And you also have to change out nebulizer tubing every Friday night for those that did nebulizer treatments. And then the refrigerator had to be checked on night shift, that the glucose and stuff was in. The temperature had to be checked to make sure it was like in the correct range for the insulin. So you had to open that and check the thermometer and write that down every night. And then we also had a treatment book. So some people would have treatments that have to be done every shift. So if your patient had a dressing change that needed to be done on night shift, you would have to do that and sign off on it in the treatment book. And also on night shift, if you had residents that had an appointments for the next day, the next oncoming day, you would have to make copies of their face sheets. You would have to get a doctor progress sheet so the doctors can write what went on during that appointment. And then you also had to get a new medication order sheet, and you have to put all of that in an envelope and label it with their name, and they would take that envelope with them to the doctor. And all that had to be gotten together on night shift, so the day shift wouldn't have to worry about it. And I think that is about it. It was all that went on on a typical night shift for me at a long-term care facility. So if you guys want to know anything else or any other videos you would like me to record, just let me know and I will be sure to get it out to you guys. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.